who tackles those obstacles head on and, like Henry Ford says, just focuses on their goal and perseveres when so many entrepreneurs fail at those obstacles, is certainly worthy of our admiration, and it's what moves the world forwards.
Welcome to the Laws of Business podcast. Here, we will share the skills you need to make your business a success. Learn about goal setting, productivity, time management, marketing, and much more. Hear inspiring stories with today's best business leaders and join a hub of thousands of passionate entrepreneurs across the world. And now, here's your host, Jamil Jama.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Law of Business, where I interview entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Jamil Jama, and today we have a real special guest from Melbourne, Australia, Scott Trevethan. Before I go into the questions, I'd like to give you a brief bio of who Scott is and what he does. Scott is a chartered accountant with over 20 years of broad experience in both public accounting as well as small and large business. He has owned and operated a startup concept cafe called Rap City Cafe, and more recently opened an international bookkeeping and internal accounting business called GoGlobal. His time is mainly spent as principal of Scott Partners, a chartered accounting firm based in Melbourne, specializing in small and medium-sized business advice and tax. He is also a qualified financial planner. And it's a real pleasure to welcome Scott on the show. Scott, first of all, Scott, I want to thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview. It's a real pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Jamil, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. And I don't want people who are listening to this podcast to fall asleep thinking that they're just going to get a boring accountant talking to them. We're going to be talking all things entrepreneurial. We're not going to be focusing on, don't picture me as your typical traditional chartered accountant.
Definitely. Talking about business, Scott, I'd like to start. I know that there's a quote by Jeff Bezos, and Jeff Bezos says, "I knew that if I failed, I wouldn't regret that, but I knew the one thing I might regret is not trying." Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon, said that. And you tried and succeeded with your startup cafe called Rap City Cafe. Was that the beginning of your entrepreneurship journey? Is that how you got into entrepreneurship?
It absolutely was. I think owning a cafe or running a business in any shape or form is kind of like the journalist's dream of writing a novel. So for an accountant, we always want to start our own business, and I had an opportunity to do that. But of course, it couldn't just be any old cafe business. It had to be a prototype that we could then franchise and take around the country and be super successful. So it was absolutely my first foray into entrepreneurship. Before that, I was just a salary and wage earner, working in both industry and for public accounting firms. So
yeah, that was your first ever business. There was many lessons you learned from that. There must have been many lessons you learned from your first business, right?
Oh God, I hope so. I just paid I paid around about $150,000 for that lesson. So I hope I got some lessons out of it. Not least of which was, really around understanding who your market is, who you're selling, what your costs are, and how you're going to deliver that to your market consistently. Because without those, and how you're really going to differentiate yourself from other businesses that are similar to you. We thought we had a great concept in Rap City Cafe, and we may well have. There was a number of different reasons that business didn't succeed. But ultimately, it wasn't what the market wanted where we opened, what we did, and we call it a prototype cafe because the prototype wasn't proven to be successful, so we shut it down, and I licked my wounds and moved on with a $150,000 education.
So Henry Ford said, "Obstacles are those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off your goals." What are the obstacles startups face, and how would they overcome them, Scott?
Wow, I mean, it's a big question because there's so many obstacles that startups face. I mean, the first one is just, I've got a great idea, but I don't know how to take that idea from concept into some sort of reality. We see a lot of TV shows about startups. It's all about tech. It's all about apps, but there's lots of other startups out there that just have a good idea and they need to take that from concept to reality. How they do it in terms of coming up with some sort of prototype for what they're doing, getting finance, the legal and accounting structure of what they're doing, being introduced to the right people at the right time, and understanding really where their market is, where they're ultimately going to sell what it is that they're selling. These are massive obstacles for people, and I can well understand that a lot more people aren't entrepreneurs because of those obstacles. And I think anyone who tackles those obstacles head on, and like Henry Ford says, just focuses on their goal and perseveres when so many entrepreneurs fail at those obstacles, is certainly worthy of our admiration, and it's what moves the world forwards.
Yeah, and also I think marketing and sales. A lot of people neglect marketing and sales. So some startups encounter problems because they haven't put enough resources into like marketing and sales.
Well, ultimately, I believe all businesses all around marketing and innovation. If you haven't got a great product that meets a need for someone, and you haven't got a good methodology of telling them what it is, then you're really not going to get too far. And one of my mentors, Mike O'Hagan, who runs a company in Australia called Mike's Mini Movers, which is quite a large removalist company. And Mike often says when people come to him for entrepreneurial advice, where's your market, and what's your marketing plan to reach that market? And if you can't answer that question, he doesn't care how good your idea is. You really got a stiff obstacle that you need to overcome.
Definitely. So lack of planning as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Definitely need to plan, because many startups falter because they forgot to plan. And if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, basically.
Yeah, that's right. Now, I'm not going to do the typical accountant thing and suggest that you spend a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort developing a detailed business plan before you even get your idea off the ground. I think that a business plan, or the planning process itself, needs to be somewhat dynamic, especially in the early days. Now, if you're going for venture capital funding, then you need to have a lot more robustness about the idea that you're pitching in terms of its financials and its overall plan. But I think a good working plan will beat a really detailed, solid business plan, because we all know that we live in a world that is so dynamic these days that business plans are perfect. As Mike Tyson says, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Definitely. I also believe finding the right people is important as well to making a startup successful, because nobody's an island, because everybody needs somebody, a team to help them. Especially nowadays, people have tribes. Have you seen the tribes online?
Yep.
People are building tribes, and they come up with names for their tribes. Like that guy on YouTube calls himself, Evan Carmichael calls his tribe Believe Nation. Yep. And these are like your tribes, and they help your business to grow. So finding the right people, I believe, is important as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think certain elements have been doing that. Certainly in the tech world, they've been doing that for a long time, using discussion boards to bring groups of interested people together to work on business problems and problems that can solve large society issues, as well as whatever it is you're trying to do. That we're seeing that manifest certainly in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm sure it's indicative of other places as well, with a whole bunch of co-working spaces as well. So a budding entrepreneur can come and join a co-working space and just be in the same proximity and chat to people who are in the same sort of situation, or maybe in front of them on their entrepreneurial journey. And it can be a massive support. But having that initial mentor, someone that can understand the problems that you're going to face and help talk you through and prepare you for those, would be a massive advantage to those people that are out there in the wilderness doing it by themselves.
I was going to ask you about mentorship as well, but before we talk about mentors, I wanted to ask you more about the obstacles entrepreneurs face. What I believe competition is also an obstacle entrepreneurs face, startup face. What if you want to start a business but there's fierce competition in that field? Do you look to start a business in a field with less competition instead? There's a quote. Yes. There's a quote basically. They want to see you do good, but never better than them. Remember that. So people are going to be nice to you. They're going to want to see you do good, but when you become their competition, they start to change. They want to take you down, basically.
Absolutely. And the one flaw, well, it's not a flaw, it's a character trait of entrepreneurs, I believe, is a relentless optimism, certainly in the face of stiff competition. I think a market analysis of what it is that you're attempting to do and the way that you're attempting to do it is very, very important. So if I'm interested in starting up a cafe, for example, in an area that has many, many, many cafes, I may want to consider either one, my location, so I can move to some place with less competition, or two, how am I meeting the needs of my potential customer better than those other people around me? So in other words, focusing on innovation. So if I'm not doing anything that's particularly good or particularly different or particularly better or particularly meets the needs of my potential market better than my competitors, then maybe I need to rethink entering a very crowded market already. So in that respect, I agree that maybe you do look for a field with less competition, and it might be an industry with less competition, or it might be a location with less competition. But, you know, as I say, the relentless optimism of entrepreneurs is something that I think is incredibly endearing. But we need to temper that with some sort of market research in relation to who's actually going to buy your product at the end of the day. Otherwise, you'll do a lot of work for no real gain.
So how do entrepreneurs get that relentless optimism?
I think they were born with it. I mean, why would you possibly go down a path that's a lot less sure, pays a lot less money than being a salary and wage earner? You know, only the very top entrepreneurs make any money or sell their business for profit, and most ideas fail. So why would you possibly want to go down that path? And I believe it's something that you're born with, or that you develop over time, maybe, that you want to change the world for the better, that you want to do. I don't believe there's any just pure capitalism driven entrepreneurs. I'm sure there is, but I don't tend to come across them. It's people who want to change things for the better, come up with an idea and say, I can do this better, whether it's meeting the needs of your target market better, or whether it's delivering a brand new product or service that the market didn't even know that they wanted. And I think we can all get inspired by entrepreneurs as well. I mean, Steve Jobs is the ultimate entrepreneur, someone that we can really sit back and go, wow, you know, he really changed the world. Richard Branson's another example of someone who, you know, we're able to see any industry and say, I think we can do this better. I think we can serve the needs of our target market a lot better than the incumbents. So let's do it. But there are many, many more that fail than succeed, even with proper planning and with all the best luck and best intentions in the world. I recently saw one of the founders.
I think it's about luck as well. It's not 100% skill. Luck is involved as well. Because I've seen that as well. I've seen entrepreneurs do everything right, and sometimes they fail. So luck is to do with it as well, I believe.
Absolutely. I recently saw a bunch of entrepreneurs on stage, and one of them was the founder of Skype, and he was really talking, and one of them was the founder of Airbnb. And again, they were talking about just the incredible luck that they had to have at certain periods of their timeline of the formation of their businesses. And, you know, in some instances, you can be sitting there and thinking, wow, the founders of Skype didn't get the really big money before it was sold to Microsoft, but they still consider themselves fairly lucky because I think they had, you know, something like 30 days of operating capital left when they sold their business. So, you know, luck can play an incredible part in your entrepreneurial journey, no matter how good your product is.
Definitely. And talking about money, let's talk about the money side of business, please, Scott. Do startups need money, and what for? What do they need money for? Do they need investors or their own money? Do you believe they should start with their own money or investors?
Well, I think they need to start with their own time. I'm not sure that they need their own money, at least initially. You know, we get very wrapped around the axles of making our businesses to a point where we need to do our first round of seed capital, and then we need to, you know, because that's what the tech entrepreneurs do. They come up with an idea and then put that out to the investor market and see if they can raise some capital. I don't think they need to do that. I think they need to be prepared to invest a lot of their own time, but then they can bootstrap. So that is, you know, really relying on very low cost ways of doing things, giving their own time, whether it is that they're still at work at the same time, they can earn money at a job, and start their entrepreneurial journey part-time after hours, so that they can fund themselves into getting it to a point where there's at least some sort of substance behind what they're doing before they take it to an investor. I really think that they need to get a fair bit down the track before they do that first round of seed capital raising. You hear stories of successful entrepreneurs now that talk about their first round of capital raising, where they've talked to 150 different investors. Or there was a recent talk I heard from the founders of an Australian business called Catapult, which does the GPSs for elite sporting teams all over the world. And he said 2013, he basically spent the whole year talking to every single person that could possibly give them money and didn't get any money. And that was a great idea in established business with established tech. So I don't think that they need to have money to start. I think they need to be prepared to work really hard for no reward for a large period of time. And that might be years. I think the Airbnb guys were also saying that, it took them about 10 years to become an overnight success. So you really
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. It took them 10 years. I didn't know that. I haven't read their story that much. That's why.
Oh, it's really quite, I didn't know about it, and it's really quite fascinating. But these are the guys that couch surfed and dodged the landlord because they didn't have enough money for their rent, and the first month they produced $200 worth of revenue. These guys, we're really talking bootstrapping, and it's you don't know as an entrepreneur that this idea is going to make any money, and you don't know from week to week or month to month whether you're going to be able to keep the doors open and the lights on. And that's why, if you can surround yourself with people who might be able to support you in giving you some of those sort of advantages. And like, as an accounting firm, we support entrepreneurs and startup businesses. We understand that the journey that they're on, and we'll try and give them a great rate for doing their work, at least initially, before they go into their capital raising rounds. But even then, people are not wanting to spend a lot of money in terms of preparing business plan or getting themselves to a point where they are investor ready, because it just costs money. But I don't think you do need to have money to start. I think you definitely need to be willing to invest your time, which is much more precious than money after all, because you've got a finite supply of it.
So, Scott, do you also provide mentorship?
Well, we do. I do. Wherever, for both for our clients and for associates of mine, I'm involved in numerous business groups where people, if they want mentorship, sometimes they ask for it. Sometimes I just feel compelled to just tell them what I think. But
doing more than paid for. Doing more than paid for, right?
Yeah, I don't. Well, I don't charge a fee for doing that service. I think if you can give back some of the lessons that I've learned, I guess I'm in a fairly unique position in being an accountant and the accounting industry isn't made up of entrepreneurs. Accountants are, very old, established, professional public practice type of people. So typically we're risk averse. We know a lot about money, finance, and accounting, and how to minimize risk, which is important. But if you can add an entrepreneurial bent, understand where people's excitement comes from, and not temper that excitement, I think if it was up to many conservative accountants, they would discourage anyone from entering the entrepreneurial space because it's just too risky and the rewards aren't there for most participants. But I take a different view. It's more, if you want to go down this path and change the world for the better, then we should support you in doing that, whether it's from advice or discounted accounting work, whatever it is that we can do, we try to do. I think it's
yeah. I don't know if I read online somewhere that, well, one entrepreneur was saying 99% of people are probably better off at having a job instead of starting their own business. I kind of agree with that. I don't know if you agree with that as well, Scott.
I 100% agree with it financially. But I think we want to go back to Jeff Bezos' quote that you mentioned at the start of the interview. I guarantee you that you won't count how much money you made in your life on your deathbed when you're sitting back looking at the staring. It'll all be about what you regret not doing. And so from a purely financial perspective, yeah, it doesn't make sense for a lot of entrepreneurs to jump into business. Most businesses fail. A too high a percentage of business fail. And tragically, a lot of the businesses that don't fail just hang in there, sucking the life out of their owners for the next 10 to 15 years while they just hang in there, which is worse, I think, than failing. But at least those guys, and we look at them from an economic, as a society, we look back and say, oh man, that guy only got, made $10,000 or 10,000 quid a year. They could have earned more working for someone in a clerical job. But what we're failing to recognize is the freedom that that person had in their own business and what they were achieving in their own rights. I mean, you can't take the money with you. I think we've got to count not just the financial rewards of entrepreneurialism, but also the character that entrepreneurialism builds in people and the resilience that it builds in people.
That's more important.
I think so.
That's more important. What he was saying is entrepreneurship nowadays is oversold because people only see the rewards. They don't see all the hard work and sacrifice and then the non-stop work. They just see the play. They don't see all the hard work. Basically, he was saying all he does is work. Rarely does he play. And they don't, most of the time, the other entrepreneurs don't show this. He's basically saying it's oversold and 99% of people are better off at having a job.
Yep. I agree it's oversold. And I don't know if I'd encourage my kids to want to go and get a job. If that sort of helps answer the question. I'm not an advocate of the traditional career path. I think it can have a place in terms of funding you, but I think you need to explore, it's a big world. And if you can explore understanding what the value is that you can bring to people, then you'll be much more likely to be a financial success, even if your idea doesn't succeed. So, but I totally agree with you in terms of, the idea of entrepreneurialism is undersold, and we should not, I believe I'm saying most people fail at this. Most people don't make any money. Most people will have to walk away and lick their wounds. And the most successful entrepreneurs fail time and time and time again.
Fail 3 times most of the time. On average, 3 times until they're finally successful.
Yeah, I mean, we look at Richard Branson and we say, well, that it wasn't very hard, was it? So surely everyone can do that. But I think we forget the genius of the man, and I think we don't give enough credit for, he's just in the right space, and I'm sure he has had his fair share of things that just haven't worked.
Yeah, the cola drink didn't work. His Virgin Cola, that failed.
Yeah.
I think he tried to start a magazine. I'm not too sure. Definitely the Virgin Cola failed. I know that.
Yeah. And these things. It was interesting when you listen to CEOs and they start listing out their CV, and you think, here's all the list of companies that I'm involved in. You only know one, which is the public one that went really well, but here's the 10 that never went anywhere. And they were great ideas, and we had great people, and we had great teams of people, but we just never got really anywhere. So, no, I totally agree.
Yes. But the best part about entrepreneurship, as you were saying earlier, is about the journey and the person you develop to, the person you become, the ability to set goals and achieve them, the ability to be productive, to manage your time, to have good communication skills, to net the people you meet, and the ability to be disciplined. The person you become is more important than what you have.
Oh, absolutely. And just one other thing too, Jamil, I think, and not to get too philosophical on this, but I've worked for large companies, British American Tobacco and Campbell's Soups. Great large corporations are good. They don't tend to drive a lot of value for society, though. I think they tend to maintain status quo and maintain profits for shareholders. I think that if you want to drive society forward, you need your entrepreneur to do that. You need the small, nimble person who's going to shake things up, rock the big boys to their foundations. And to me, that's the real joy of entrepreneurship, because if you can shake up those big boys and benefit society, then that's what you should do.
Definitely. Scott, it was real awesome having you on the show. I enjoyed this interview very much.
My absolute pleasure. Love talking all things entrepreneurial. Thanks, Jamil.
Yeah, and if anybody wanted to contact you, where can they find you, please, Scott?
Sure, they could find me on the usual social media channels. So Trevethan67 on Twitter. They can find me on the website's GoGlobalBookkeeping.com. That's GoGlobalBookkeeping, all one word, .com. Or scottpartners.com.au, which is our accounting firm website, and I can be contacted through there.
That's awesome, Scott. And Scott is also an accountant. He helps people with business and startups and bookkeeping and financial planning. So he doesn't just help with startup; he helps with accounting as well. You own an accounting firm, right, Scott?
That's right. We do tax and accounting work. Traditional chartered accounting firm as people, or like a CPA firm for those people in the US. Typical traditional public accounting business. But we also provide outsourced bookkeeping services for businesses all across the world to help them understand their businesses and drive their businesses better.
That's great. And if you know anybody that this interview would benefit, please share it with them. Also, please let me know what you thought about this interview in the comment section. Please also subscribe. And I'm your host, Jamil Jama. This is The Law of Business. And that was Scott Trevethan's interview, his story. Thank you all very much for listening.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jamil.
Thanks for listening to the Laws of Business podcast. Find out more about us on thelawsofbusiness.com. Thank you for being a part of our journey.